Lisa Martinez sat at her workstation in the Deep Space Monitoring Station, watching the endless stream of data flow across her screens. The station floated far beyond Pluto, where space was quiet and cold. Most days nothing happened. Space was big and empty, and humans were still new to exploring it. But today was different. A signal cut through the static. Lisa frowned and adjusted her headset. The signal was weak but clear enough to understand. Someone was calling for help, speaking in broken Galactic Standard language. "Help us," the voice said. "We are dying. The machines come. They take everything. Please, someone help us." Lisa's hands moved quickly over her controls. She recorded the message and ran it through the translation software. The voice belonged to something called a Zephyrian. She had never heard of them before. The message continued. "We are from Aquatica Prime in the Kepler 442 system. The Void Reapers attack us. They destroy our worlds. We offer technology and star charts to anyone who helps us. Please, we have heard of humans. You fight well. Help us." Lisa felt her heart race. First contact with a new alien species, and they were asking for military help. She immediately sent the recording to Luna Command. 3 hours later, Captain Jake Morrison received the message on Earth's moon. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had fought in the Martian conflicts and knew what war meant. As he listened to the desperate plea, he felt something stir inside him. Jake called his communications officer. "Get me Admiral Rodriguez. Priority 1. Within minutes, Admiral Claire Rodriguez appeared on his screen. She was a tough woman who had earned her rank through skill and determination. "What do you have, Jake?" "A distress call from an unknown species. They're under attack by something called Void Reapers. They're asking for human military assistance." Rodriguez leaned forward. "Send me everything." The recording reached Earth's capital within the hour. The Terran Defense Council gathered an emergency session. 12 of humanity's top leaders sat around a circular table, discussing the implications. "We don't know these Zephyrians," said General Marcus Powell. "This could be a trap." "Or it could be genuine," replied Dr. Helen Carter, the chief xenobiologist. "The signal came from the right location. We've detected energy signatures from that system before." Ambassador Kyle Turner spoke up. "The Centauri Coalition warned us about something like this. They said there are threats in deep space we're not ready to face. The Centauri Coalition also said we weren't ready for the asteroid pirates." Rodriguez said with a slight smile. "We proved them wrong about that." The room grew quiet. Everyone remembered the asteroid pirates. The alien criminals had thought humans would be easy targets. They learned otherwise when human ships hunted them down across 3 star systems. President Amanda Foster, a woman in her 50s with kind but determined eyes, looked around the table. "What do we know about these Void Reapers?" Dr. Carter pulled up her files. "Nothing in our databases. But the Zephyrians describe them as machines that consume entire star systems. If that's true, they're a threat to everyone." "Including us," added General Powell. "Especially us," Rodriguez corrected. "If they're as dangerous as described, they'll come for Earth eventually. Better to fight them now, away from home." Turner frowned. "The Centauri Coalition specifically advised against getting involved in conflicts beyond our local cluster. They said we're too young a species to handle galactic threats." Rodriguez stood up and walked to the large window showing Earth below. "The Coalition has been wrong about humans before. They thought we'd be conquered by the first alien species we met. Instead, we became allies with most of them and defeated the ones who tried to hurt us." "This is different," Turner insisted. "We're talking about leaving human space entirely. We'd be on our own." "We're always on our own when it matters," Rodriguez replied. "That's what makes us human." President Foster called for a vote. "All in favor of responding to the Zephyrian distress call?" 11 hands went up. Only Turner abstained. "It's decided then," Foster said. "Admiral Rodriguez, prepare the fleet." Rodriguez nodded. "How many ships?" General Powell checked his tablet. "The Void Reapers destroyed 3 Zephyrian worlds. We should send a significant force." "Define significant," Rodriguez said. Foster thought for a moment. "Send everything we can spare. If we're going to help, we do it properly." Rodriguez smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "I'll mobilize the 3rd Fleet. 12 dreadnoughts, 40 destroyers, and full marine complement. 50,000 troops." Turner's eyes widened. "That's our entire deep space capability. You're sending our main battle fleet to help aliens we've never met?" "Yes," Foster said simply. "That's exactly what we're doing. Within 6 hours, orders went out across human space. Ships received new coordinates. Marines packed their gear. Pilots prepared their fighters. The largest human military force ever assembled began moving toward unknown space. On the UES Defiance, Captain Morrison stood on his bridge watching the fleet form up. 12 massive dreadnoughts floated in formation, their hulls dark against the stars. Around them, the smaller destroyers took their positions like wolves around their pack leaders. "Sir," his communications officer called out. "Message from Admiral Rodriguez." The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. "All ships, this is Rodriguez. We're going to help a species we've never met fight an enemy we know nothing about. Some might call that foolish." She paused, looking directly at the camera. "I call it human. We've never turned away from someone asking for help, and we're not starting now. The Zephyrians chose us because they've heard humans fight well. Let's make sure their faith was well placed." The fleet began moving toward the edge of the solar system. Behind them, Earth grew smaller. Ahead lay unknown space and an enemy that had already destroyed worlds. In her quarters, Lisa Martinez looked at the original message again. The Zephyrian voice sounded so desperate, so hopeful. She wondered if the aliens knew what they had just unleashed. Humans didn't just fight well. When someone asked for their help, they came with everything they had. The journey to Zephyrian space would take 3 weeks. The aliens were expecting maybe a small task force. Instead, they were about to meet the full might of human military power. Lisa hoped they were ready for what was coming. She had a feeling the Void Reapers weren't. 3 weeks later, the human fleet arrived at the edge of Zephyrian space. What they found was not what anyone expected. Scattered across the dark void were dozens of refugee ships. They looked nothing like human vessels. These ships seemed grown rather than built, with smooth curves and surfaces that looked like coral or seashells. Many showed damage from weapons fire. Some leaked atmosphere into space. "My God," whispered Captain Morrison as he looked at the refugee fleet on his main screen. "There are so many of them." Admiral Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system. "All ships maintain defensive formation. Ambassador Turner, you're cleared to begin first contact procedures." Ambassador Kyle Turner stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmony. He had prepared for this moment for 3 weeks, but seeing the desperate refugee ships made his stomach tight. These weren't just aliens asking for help. These were survivors of a war they were losing. "Open a channel," Turner ordered. The main screen flickered and Turner found himself looking at something that took his breath away. The alien was definitely aquatic, with blue-green skin that seemed to shimmer like water. Large, dark eyes dominated a face that had gills along the neck. When it spoke, its voice had a musical quality. "I am Admiral Coral Song of Depths of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien said in careful galactic standard. "Are you the humans?" "I am Ambassador Kyle Turner, representing Earth and humanity. We received your distress call." The alien's large eyes grew even wider. "You came. We hoped, but we did not dare believe. How many ships did you bring?" Turner hesitated. "We brought a fleet." "A fleet?" Coral Song of Depths leaned forward. "How many vessels?" 52 combat ships and support vessels." The alien stared at him for a long moment. Then its gills fluttered rapidly, which Turner's briefing material said indicated extreme surprise. 52 ships? For our request? We thought perhaps you might send a few vessels to scout the situation." Turner smiled. "When humans receive a call for help, we respond properly." Admiral Rodriguez's flagship moved closer to the largest Zephyrian vessel. The alien ship was massive, easily twice the size of a human dreadnought, but it was clearly damaged. Scorch marks covered its hull, and several sections showed hasty repairs. On board the flagship, Commander Alex Stone studied tactical reports with Zephyrian military leaders. The aliens had provided detailed information about Void Reaper forces, and none of it was encouraging. "They have consumed 3 of our worlds," explained General Wavebreaking on shore, a scarred Zephyrian veteran. "Tidal Falls, Deep Current, and Coral Gardens. Each world had billions of our people." Stone looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed Void Reaper positions. There were hundreds of them. "What's their standard battle formation?" "Formation?" The Zephyrian general seemed confused. "They do not use formations. They simply attack until nothing is left. Our strategy has been to hide and strike when possible, then retreat." Stone frowned. "You fight defensively?" "Of course. The Void Reapers are machines. They have no fear, no doubt. They cannot be reasoned with or intimidated. The only way to survive is to avoid direct confrontation. Stone looked at his fellow human officers. They exchanged glances that the Zephyrians couldn't understand. To humans, being told something was impossible to fight directly was like being given a challenge. General, would you mind if we reviewed your battle recordings? We'd like to see how these Void Reapers operate. The recordings were disturbing. The Void Reapers looked like geometric nightmares made of black metal and red energy. They moved with perfect coordination, their weapons tearing through Zephyrian defenses like paper. Worst of all, they showed no interest in prisoners or negotiation. They simply destroyed everything in their path. They turn our worlds into processing centers, Wave Breaking on Shore explained. They strip mine the planets and use the materials to build more ships. Each world they take makes them stronger. Meanwhile, Marine Colonel Nina Hayes was preparing her troops for what everyone expected would be the hardest fight of their lives. In the massive cargo holds of the troop transports, 50,000 Marines checked their equipment and listened to briefings. The Void Reapers are machines, Hayes told her officers. That means they think like machines. They're logical, predictable, and they follow patterns. Is that good or bad? Asked Major Pete Collins. Hayes smiled grimly. For them, it's very bad. Machines expect other machines. They don't expect humans. Dr. Ryan Clark spent his time studying wreckage from destroyed Zephyrian ships. The technology was impressive, but the damage patterns told an interesting story. The Void Reapers used energy weapons almost exclusively. Their attacks were precise and efficient. They're designed to fight other technological civilizations, Clark reported to Admiral Rodriguez. Energy shields, plasma weapons, advanced targeting systems. They've optimized their tactics for that kind of warfare. What about our weapons? Rodriguez asked. Clark grinned. Our kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, and projectile systems? They probably haven't seen anything like that in centuries. Their databases might not even have countermeasures for primitive technology. On the Harmony, Ambassador Turner continued talking with choral song of depths. The Zephyrian admiral was grateful but clearly worried about something. Ambassador Turner, may I ask about human military doctrine? How do your people typically engage superior forces? Turner thought about the question. We adapt. Humans are good at finding weaknesses and exploiting them. We also have a saying, if you can't go through something, go around it. If you can't go around it, go through it anyway. The alien's gills fluttered again. You attack directly? Even when outnumbered? Sometimes. Depends on the situation. The Void Reapers outnumber your fleet significantly. Our scouts report at least 300 enemy vessels in the tidal fall system alone. Turner nodded calmly. Those are pretty good odds. Good odds? Choral Song of Depths stared at him. 300 against 52 is good odds. For the Void Reapers, yes. For us, it's about average. The Zephyrian admiral fell silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was carefully controlled. Ambassador, what exactly have we asked you to fight? Turner smiled. You asked for human military assistance. You're about to see what that really means. Across the fleet, preparations continued. Pilots ran combat simulations. Engineers modified weapon systems. Marines practiced boarding operations. The humans worked with the efficiency that came from generations of warfare. The Zephyrians watched in fascination and growing alarm. These humans moved like they were preparing for a celebration, rather than a desperate battle against impossible odds. They joked with each other. They sang strange songs. Some of them seemed excited about the coming fight. Admiral Rodriguez called a final meeting of all ship commanders. Intelligence suggests the Void Reapers are expecting us. They've probably never faced humans before, so they don't know what to expect. Let's keep it that way. Captain Morrison raised his hand. Rules of engagement? Rodriguez's expression turned cold. The Void Reapers destroyed entire worlds full of civilians. They're machines with no capacity for surrender or negotiation. Rules of engagement are simple. Destroy everything that shoots at us. The fleet began moving toward Tidal Falls, the first occupied Zephyrian world. As they traveled, the humans continued their preparations. The Zephyrians provided what help they could, but mostly they watched in amazement. These humans didn't fight like any species they knew. Other galactic civilizations approached warfare as a careful science. Humans approached it like an art form, and they painted with very broad brushes. The Void Reapers were about to learn why the galaxy was starting to whisper about the young species from Earth. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one with the best technology, Sometimes it's the one that doesn't fight fair. The battle for Tidal Falls began at dawn. Ship time. Captain Sam Foster looked out at the Void Reaper fleet through his fighter's cockpit. 300 enemy ships hung in space like a swarm of black insects. At the center sat something that made his blood run cold. A massive mothership the size of a small moon, its hull covered in weapon ports. "Ghost Squadron, this is command," came Admiral Rodriguez's voice. "Execute Operation Blindside." Foster grinned and switched to his squadron frequency. "You heard the lady, Ghost. Time to show these machines how humans say hello." 24 human fighters accelerated toward the enemy mothership. To any observer, it looked like suicide. The massive ship's main cannon was already charging, energy crackling along its length. One shot from that weapon could destroy a human dreadnought. The Zephyrians watched in horror from their ships. "They're flying directly into the main cannon," Choral Song of Depth said. "This is madness." The Void Reaper mothership fired. A beam of pure energy lanced out toward the approaching fighters. At the last second, the human ship scattered in all directions. Where they had been flying, space filled with specialized torpedoes. The torpedoes weren't designed to damage the ship. They were electromagnetic pulse weapons that detonated directly in front of the massive cannon. The mothership's shields flickered and failed as electrical systems overloaded. "Target is blind," Foster reported. "Repeat, target is blind. The human fleet opened fire." Kinetic rounds and missile salvos hammered into the defenseless mothership. The Void Reapers had never encountered projectile weapons moving at such high speeds. Their point defense systems, designed to stop energy weapons, couldn't track the incoming metal slugs. On the surface of Tidal Falls, Colonel Hayes watched the orbital bombardment through her tactical display. Void Reaper installations were being systematically destroyed from orbit. "Marines, we are go for insertion," Hayes announced. "Remember, these machines think they're fighting another technological civilization. Show them they're wrong." The drop pods hit Tidal Falls like meteors. 2,000 Marines scattered across the planet's surface, each squad equipped for a different kind of chaos. The Void Reapers had sensors everywhere, but those sensors were designed to detect energy signatures and advanced technology. They didn't know what to make of humans carrying chemical explosives and slug-throwing weapons. Lieutenant Grace Phillips led her squad through what used to be a Zephyrian city. The buildings were beautiful coral structures that the Void Reapers had converted into processing facilities. Machines moved along assembly lines, breaking down everything they found into raw materials. "There," Phillips pointed to a control center. "That's our target." Her squad moved quietly through the ruins. The Void Reapers had sensors, but they were looking for the wrong things. They detected advanced weapons, energy shields, and technological threats. They didn't notice 12 humans with backpacks full of thermite charges and crowbars. Phillips reached the control center first. It was a crystalline structure humming with energy. Void Reaper drones moved around it in perfect patterns, maintaining the machinery that was strip mining the planet. "How do we get in?" asked Corporal Danny Price. Phillips looked at the sophisticated energy barriers protecting the entrance. Then she looked at her crowbar. The old-fashioned way, she jammed the crowbar into the energy field generator and twisted. Sparks flew and alarms began sounding. The barriers collapsed. "That worked?" Price stared at her. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution," Phillips said, leading her squad inside. The Void Reapers inside the control center turned to face the intruders. They were tall, angular machines with glowing red sensors. They moved with perfect coordination, raising weapons that could have melted through advanced armor. Phillips and her squad were wearing basic combat gear and carrying weapons that fired metal bullets. The machines fired. Energy beams lanced through the air where the humans should have been. But Phillips had trained her squad well. They moved unpredictably, using cover that machines wouldn't think to use, fighting in ways that defied logical tactical doctrine. Price rolled behind a control console and came up firing. His assault rifle sent rounds bouncing around the chamber in seemingly random patterns. But the patterns weren't random. They were calculated to confuse targeting systems designed to predict logical behavior. The Void Reapers tried to adapt. Their programming analyzed human movements and began predicting attack patterns. Then Sergeant Tony Rodriguez's squad arrived and started playing Earth music at maximum volume through captured communication systems. The machines literally froze. Their processors, trying to analyze the data stream of human music, couldn't understand what they were experiencing. Heavy metal guitar riffs and thundering drums overloaded systems designed to process logical information. "Is that Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries?" Phillips asked as her squad planted thermite charges. "Mixed with some Metallica," Rodriguez grinned. "I call it psychological warfare." Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Human Marines used tactics that made no sense to machine intelligence. They fought with controlled chaos, aggressive unpredictability, and weapons that Void Reaper databases classified as primitive and ineffective. The machines discovered that being shot by a primitive rifle hurt just as much as being hit by an energy weapon. Chemical explosives were just as destructive as plasma charges, and humans fighting hand-to-hand with knives and clubs could disable advanced machines faster than their repair systems could adapt. In space, the battle continued with the same brutal efficiency. Captain Morrison's dreadnought Defiance engaged 3 Void Reaper destroyers at point-blank range. The enemy ships tried to maintain optimal firing distance and use superior technology to their advantage. Morrison ordered his ship directly into the enemy formation. "Ram them," he commanded. "Sir?" his tactical officer asked. "You heard me. Ram them." The Defiance accelerated toward the nearest enemy ship. At the last second, Morrison ordered emergency reverse thrust. The maneuver threw the enemy formation into chaos as they tried to avoid collision. In the confusion, human ships surrounded them and opened fire at ranges so close that energy shields were useless. The Zephyrians watched the battle in amazement. "They fight without formation," Choral Song of Depths observed. "They use no recognized tactical doctrine." "How are they winning?" Admiral Rodriguez heard the question over the communication link. "Because we're not fighting a battle," she replied. "We're creating chaos. Machines can't handle chaos." One by one, Void Reaper ships began exploding. Their perfect coordination became a weakness when human unpredictability made their calculations meaningless. They couldn't adapt fast enough to counter tactics that changed constantly and seemed to have no logic behind them. On the surface, Phillips's squad reached the main processing core. It was a massive crystalline structure that controlled all strip mining operations on the planet. The machines had built sophisticated defenses around it: energy barriers, automated weapons, scanning systems that could detect any technological threat. Phillips looked at the defenses, then at her thermite charges. "Price, remember our training about overwhelming technological superiority?" "Yes, ma'am. When in doubt, blow it up." "Exactly." They placed charges around the base of the crystal core. The Void Reapers detected the explosives but couldn't understand them. Their databases showed thermite as an obsolete human technology, ineffective against modern materials. The charges detonated. Chemical fire burned through crystalline structures that could have resisted energy weapons. The core collapsed, taking the entire processing network with it. Across tidal falls, Void Reaper machines stopped moving as their control signals died. The planet's strip mining operations ground to a halt. In orbit, the last enemy ships tried to escape. They transmitted distress signals to other Void Reaper fleets, warning them about the humans. But it was too late. The human fleet had surrounded them. "This is Admiral Rodriguez to all Void Reaper vessels," she broadcast. "You came to this system to consume a civilization. Instead, you found humanity. Consider this a lesson. We don't fight fair, we don't fight clean, and we don't leave survivors who threaten innocent people." The last enemy ships died under concentrated human fire. 72 hours after the battle began, Tidal Falls was free. The Zephyrians were grateful but deeply disturbed. They had expected humans to fight bravely and lose heroically. Instead, they had watched a species completely dismantle an enemy force through tactics that seemed insane, but worked perfectly. "How?" Choral Song of Depths asked Ambassador Turner. "How did you defeat them so easily?" Turner looked out at the wreckage floating in space. "We didn't defeat them easily. We defeated them thoroughly. There's a difference." The Zephyrian Admiral's gills fluttered nervously. "Your people fight unlike anyone in the galaxy." "That's the point," Turner replied. "If we fought like everyone else, we'd lose like everyone else." As the human fleet prepared to move to the next occupied system, reports of the battle began spreading through Void Reaper networks across the galaxy. For the first time in their existence, the machines experienced something like concern. The humans weren't just another species to be conquered. They were something unexpected, something dangerous, something that fought back. The news of humanity's victory at Tidal Falls spread through Void Reaper networks like a virus. For 3 million years, the machines had conquered every species they encountered. Their strategy was simple and effective: analyze enemy capabilities, develop countermeasures, overwhelm with superior numbers and technology. It had never failed. Until now. In the deep darkness between stars, massive Void Reaper motherships received battle reports from Tidal Falls. The data made no sense. A fleet of primitive organics had destroyed 300 Reaper vessels using weapons that their databases classified as obsolete. The central processing nodes began redirecting fleets from across the galaxy. If these humans represented a new threat, they had to be eliminated before they could spread their chaotic fighting methods to other species. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her flagship, reading intelligence reports that made her stomach cold. The Void Reapers weren't just responding to humanity's intervention. They were mobilizing everything they had. How many ships? She asked Dr. Clark. The scientist looked pale. Our deep space sensors detect at least 2,000 vessels moving toward this sector. Possibly more. They're stripping ships from every occupied system. Captain Morrison joined the discussion via communication link. Admiral, we have another problem. The Zephyrians are reporting strange readings from the direction of Earth. Rodriguez felt ice in her veins. What kind of readings? Long-range sensors detect a massive fleet heading toward human space. The Void Reapers have found Earth. The implications hit everyone at once. By coming to help the Zephyrians, humanity had painted a target on their home system. The machines were preparing to eliminate the threat at its source. How long until they reach Earth? Rodriguez asked. 6 weeks, Morrison replied. Maybe less if they have faster ships we haven't detected. Rodriguez made a decision that would have seemed insane to any other species. Instead of rushing home to defend Earth, she chose to attack deeper into Void Reaper territory. All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. We're moving to the enemy stronghold system. If they want to threaten Earth, we'll give them something bigger to worry about. Ambassador Turner's voice came over the communication system. Admiral, that's suicide. Our scouts report the stronghold system contains over 5,000 enemy vessels. Then we'd better move fast, Rodriguez replied. The human fleet began its journey into the heart of Void Reaper space, accompanied by whatever Zephyrian ships could keep up. As they traveled, Captain Morrison led reconnaissance, missions to gather intelligence on what they would face. What they found broke the hearts of even hardened human warriors. The Void Reaper stronghold system contained the remains of dozens of worlds. Planets had been stripped down to their cores, their materials converted into massive processing facilities. The bones of entire civilizations floated in space, cities, ships, works of art, all reduced to raw resources. My God, whispered Lieutenant Phillips as she studied the reconnaissance data. How many species did they destroy? Dr. Clark analyzed the wreckage. Based on the architectural styles and technology levels, at least 50 different civilizations. Some of these ruins are millions of years old. The Void Reapers had been doing this for eons. They found a species, studied it, conquered it, and consumed everything it had ever built. They were not just machines of war. They were destroyers of history itself. But Clark made an even more disturbing discovery while examining captured Reaper technology. The machines were learning. They've been studying our tactics from Tidal Falls, he reported to the senior staff. They're developing countermeasures for kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, and unpredictable movement patterns. Commander Stone frowned. How fast are they adapting? Fast. Their next generation of drones will be specifically designed to counter human fighting methods. They've also identified Earth's location and are preparing something they call a final solution. Stone's blood went cold. What kind of final solution? Clark pulled up a holographic display showing the Sol system. They plan to destabilize our sun, turn it into a supernova. They want to make sure humanity never threatens anyone again. The room fell silent. The Void Reapers weren't just planning to conquer Earth. They wanted to erase humanity from existence. Stone studied the tactical situation. They were outnumbered 100 to 1, facing an enemy that was adapting to their methods with Earth itself under threat. Any rational species would have surrendered or fled. Instead, Stone began planning the most audacious assault in military history. We're going to attack their central command, he announced. The facility they've built around that black hole. If we can destroy their coordination network, their fleets will lose tactical cohesion. The plan was called Operation Wildfire, and it was completely insane. The Void Reapers had built their ultimate command center around a black hole, using its gravitational field to power massive computational arrays. The facility was protected by layers of automated defenses and thousands of ships. Stone proposed using the black hole itself as a weapon. We'll use gravitational slingshot maneuvers to accelerate our fighters to impossible speed, he explained. The Reapers won't expect anyone to deliberately fly into a black hole's gravity well, because it's suicide, Morrison pointed out. Only if you don't pull out in time, Stone replied with a grin. As the human fleet approached the stronghold system, the Zephyrians and other alien allies grew increasingly nervous. They had seen humans fight, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. Your people are planning to assault a facility that has never been successfully attacked, Choral Song of Depths told Ambassador Turner. No species has ever even tried to approach the Central Command. Turner nodded calmly. That's probably why it's never been successfully attacked. Everyone assumes it's impossible. Because it is impossible. For most species, yes, but humans specialize in impossible things. The alien admiral's gills fluttered rapidly. Ambassador, I must ask, what exactly are your people? Turner considered the question. We're the species that gets more dangerous when you corner us. The Void Reapers made two mistakes. First, they threatened innocent people. Second, they threatened our home. And that makes you more dangerous? It makes us absolutely ruthless. Across the fleet, humans prepared for the coming battle with grim determination. They knew the odds. They knew most of them probably wouldn't survive. But they also knew that failure meant the end of Earth and everyone they had ever loved. Marine Colonel Hayes addressed her troops one final time. The enemy thinks they understand us now. They think they've learned how to fight humans. They're wrong. We're not just fighting for victory anymore. We're fighting for survival. And when humans fight for survival, we become something else entirely. The troops listened in silence. They had seen what happened when humans were pushed too far. The asteroid pirates had learned that lesson. Now the Void Reapers would learn it too. Captain Foster ran final checks on his fighter squadron. The gravitational assault on the black hole facility would require perfect timing and incredible skill. One mistake would mean death for his entire squadron. Ghost Squadron, final briefing, he announced. We're going to do something that has never been attempted in the history of warfare. We're going to use a black hole as a slingshot to attack an impossible target. Any questions? One of his pilots raised a hand. Sir, what are our chances of survival? Foster smiled. About the same as our chances were against the asteroid pirates. The same as they were at Tidal Falls. The same as they always are when humans decide to do something impossible. So pretty good then, the pilot replied. Pretty good, Foster agreed. The final approach began. Ahead lay the most heavily defended position in known space, protected by forces that had never been defeated. Behind them was Earth, home to 8 billion humans who were counting on their fleet to stop an enemy that wanted to exterminate their entire species. The Void Reapers waited with perfect mechanical patience. They had analyzed human tactics and prepared countermeasures. They had overwhelming numerical superiority. They had defensive positions that no rational enemy would even attempt to attack. They had forgotten that humans weren't particularly rational when their homes were threatened. As the human fleet entered the stronghold system, the machines began their final calculations. They were certain of victory. After all, they had never lost a battle. They were about to learn that there's always a first time. The final battle began in the shadow of a black hole. Captain Foster led Ghost Squadron toward the Void Reaper command station, a massive structure that wrapped around the black hole's event horizon like a metal ring. The gravitational forces were incredible. One wrong move would tear his fighters apart or drag them past the point of no return. Ghost Squadron, begin approach vector 77 Alpha, Foster commanded. Remember, we only get one shot at this. 24 fighters dove toward the black hole, using its gravity to accelerate to impossible speeds. The Void Reapers detected them but couldn't understand their trajectory. No sane pilot would fly that close to a black hole. Behind them, the main human fleet engaged thousands of enemy ships. The space around the black hole filled with weapons fire and explosions. Admiral Rodriguez had committed everything to this assault. If they failed here, Earth would die. On the command station, Void Reaper defensive systems tracked the approaching fighters. Their calculations showed the humans would be destroyed by gravitational forces long before reaching their target. The defense grid didn't even bother to fire. That was their first mistake. Foster's squadron used the black hole's gravity like a slingshot, building speed until they were moving faster than any weapon the Reapers possessed. At the last possible second, they fired their engines at maximum burn and pulled out of the gravity well. Half the squadron didn't make it. 12 fighters were lost to gravitational forces that crushed them like insects, but the remaining 12 slammed into the command station at relativistic speeds, carrying nuclear warheads designed to overload the facility's power systems. The explosions tore through the station's outer hull. Emergency barriers sealed the breaches, but the damage was done. The Void Reaper's coordination network began failing across the system. Target damaged but still operational, Foster reported as his surviving fighters limped away from the black hole. "We need a boarding party to finish the job." Colonel Hayes was already suiting up for the most dangerous mission of her career. She would lead a small team onto the command station to plant charges in its central core. The only way to reach it was through a direct assault on the most heavily defended position in the galaxy. "Marine Team Alpha, prepare for insertion," Hayes commanded. "We're going in hard and fast. Remember, the fate of Earth depends on what we do in the next hour." 12 Marines loaded into assault pods. They would be fired directly at the command station like bullets from a gun. Most of them knew they wouldn't survive, but they also knew that failure wasn't an option. The pods launched during the height of the space battle. They screamed through enemy fire, their thick armor absorbing hits that would have destroyed normal ships. 6 pods were destroyed before reaching the station. The other 6 punched through the hull like hammers. Hayes found herself in a corridor filled with Void Reaper defenders. These machines were different from the ones at Tidal Falls. They had been specifically designed to counter human tactics. They moved unpredictably, used adaptive weapons, and showed tactical flexibility that surprised her. The machines had learned. But so had the humans. Hayes and her team fought through the station using tactics they had developed specifically for this mission. When the Reapers adapted to their movements, the Marines changed their entire fighting style. When the machines countered their weapons, the humans switched to backup systems the enemy had never seen. Lieutenant Phillips led her squad deeper into the station while Hayes provided cover. They fought past automated defenses and through corridors that twisted through impossible geometries. The station's interior was designed by machine intelligence with no consideration for organic limitations. There, Phillips pointed to a massive chamber at the station's heart. "That's the central processing core." The core was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was a crystalline structure that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, its surfaces reflecting light that shouldn't have been there. Energy flowed through it in patterns that hurt to look at directly. But more importantly, it was heavily guarded. Void Reaper defenders filled the chamber, not just soldiers, but the machine intelligence's most advanced units. These weren't just weapons. They were thinking, adapting artificial beings that had been specifically created to stop human invaders. The battle in the core chamber was like nothing in military history. Marines with chemical weapons fought machines that could predict their tactics. Humans using intuition and improvisation battled artificial intelligence using perfect calculations and logical analysis. Sergeant Tony Rodriguez found himself face to face with what appeared to be the Reaper's command unit. It was taller than the others, with multiple optical sensors that tracked his every movement. When it spoke, its voice was like static electricity. "Human," the machine said. "You have fought well, but this ends now. Your tactics have been analyzed. Your species has been cataloged. You will be offered one chance to surrender and join our collective consciousness." Rodriguez looked at the machine and laughed. "You still don't get it, do you?" "Explain. You think this is about tactics and analysis. You think you can understand humans by studying how we fight." Rodriguez raised his weapon, knowing he was probably about to die. "But you missed the most important thing about us, which is? We fight for each other. Not for victory, not for glory, not because we have to. We fight because someone asked for our help, and we never abandon people who need us." The machine's sensors focused on him. "That is illogical. You risk your entire species for aliens you had never met." "Yeah," Rodriguez said with a grin. "That's what makes us human." He opened fire. The machine returned fire. Both went down together. Around the chamber, the battle continued with desperate intensity. Phillips planted charges around the core while her squad held off wave after wave of defenders. The machines fought with perfect coordination, But the humans fought with something the Reapers couldn't understand or counter. They fought with love for their home and determination to protect innocent people they had never met. The charges detonated. The crystalline core cracked, then shattered completely. Power systems failed throughout the command station as 3 million years of accumulated data was destroyed in seconds. Across the system, Void Reaper fleets suddenly lost coordination. Ships that had moved with perfect precision began operating independently. Their tactical advantage disappeared as human forces exploited the chaos. Admiral Rodriguez watched enemy formations fall apart on her tactical display. All ships press the attack. Hit them while they're disorganized. The human fleet, supported by desperate Zephyrian allies, carved through enemy formations that could no longer coordinate their defenses. One by one, Void Reaper motherships began exploding, but victory came at a terrible price. Half the human fleet was destroyed in the assault. Thousands of Marines died fighting through the command station. The survivors limped away from the black hole as the massive facility collapsed into the event horizon. Colonel Hayes was among the few who made it back to the fleet. She stood on the bridge of a rescue ship, watching the command station's death throes through the viewports. Sergeant Rodriguez hadn't made it out. Neither had Lieutenant Phillips or so many others. Was it worth it? Asked a Zephyrian observer. Hayes looked at him with tired eyes. Ask me in 50 years when your children are swimming free in oceans that the Void Reapers would have turned into processing plants. The battle was over, but its consequences were just beginning. News of humanity's victory spread through the galaxy, faster than any ship. The Void Reapers, the unstoppable force that had consumed civilizations for millions of years, had been defeated by a species barely 2 centuries old. 6 months later, Ambassador Turner stood before the Galactic Council on the EU neutral station Harmony Point. Representatives from hundreds of species listened as he delivered humanity's first official address to galactic civilization. The Void Reaper threat has been eliminated, Turner announced. Their fleets are scattered, their command structure destroyed. The galaxy is safe. The chamber erupted in cheers and celebration, but Turner noticed that many of the alien representatives looked nervous rather than grateful. He understood why. After the formal session, Choral Song of Depths approached him privately. Ambassador, my people are eternally grateful for what humanity did for us. But I must ask, what happens now? What do you mean? The Zephyrian's gills fluttered anxiously. You saved us from the Void Reapers. But in doing so, you showed the galaxy what humans are capable of when motivated. Many species are concerned. Turner nodded slowly. He had expected this. They're afraid of us. Can you blame them? You destroyed an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy. You did it with tactics that no one else would even attempt. You sacrificed thousands of your own people for aliens you had never met. Choral Song of Depths paused. Most species see that as either noble or terrifying. Many see it as both. Across the galaxy, other species quietly began developing new defensive technologies, not against the Void Reapers who were gone, but against the humans who had destroyed them. Entire civilizations started asking the same question. What would humans do if they decided someone else was a threat? Admiral Rodriguez, now bearing scars from the final battle, stood in her office on Luna looking out at Earth. The planet,